Hey everyone, Mr. Happy here, and welcome to Mondays with Mr. Happy, aka Mr. Happy Mondays, the weekly Q&A show where you ask me questions and I answer them. It's been an interesting week over in the Twitchscape. I've had a lot of Twitch highlights I want to post to YouTube, because I haven't made a lot of traditional YouTube content because I've been spending so much time just playing video games, which is weird for me, because, you know, doing this for as many years as I have, sometimes playing video games off stream is the last thing I want to do. I want to like catch up on like podcasts or take care of emails because I'm just like I play games every day. But I've had this recent like resurgence of wanting to play games off stream because of Temtem hitting early access. Kingdom Hearts 3 I've been working on the remaining Remind achievements that aren't a part of the completing the DLCs and the bosses. So on top of Kakarot and a bunch of other things. It's been really weird because I've been very not productive, which is okay in January's, but even still, I don't really like the habit, but I also have been having a good time. I'm a bit torn. So it's been an interesting week for me. Probably right after this, I'll go and continue working on the Kingdom Hearts 3 Pro Code achievement, which I'm actually just running through on beginner, the irony. In order to get that done, or I'll go Luma hunting in Temtem or something. I don't know. But at the very least, we have our rough time frame for when we'll probably see 5.2. Got a raid team all lined up. Just got to finish gearing up the alt that I'm going to be transferring to a different data center to raid with this raid team on. And that's going to be a hell of a good time because I'm going to be raiding with Tate. I'm going to be raiding with Pharaoh. The team is going to be a good time. I could tell that much. So I'm looking forward to I'm in a very positive mood the last couple weeks. So with that, let's get to some questions and hopefully some answers. We, of course, have our patrons who have been supporting us over on Patreon. They just additional support for the YouTube channel. It's nothing fancy. It's completely optional. Guys, I get apology messages from people on Patreon saying, I'm so sorry, but like, you know, this is going on. I'm like, you don't owe me an apology. Anyone who's on that list, you don't need to be on that list. Just watching the video is great. If you are on that list, you get this extra thank you here that's been scrolling. Of course, our patrons of Darkness, Khuja Cross on Jenova and Kurenai Oni, who have also just been awesome going above and beyond, but it's all optional. I got another one of those messages like, I can't do this. So I'm just like, you don't owe me anything. It's just there as an optional means of supporting the YouTube channel because it's not always so fantastic, even when I'm pumping out content just because of the platform. So thank you to everyone who's tuning in. Thank you to our patrons and, of course, our patrons of Darkness. With that, let's get started with the Q&A you came here for. All right, here's the first question, but actually the first comment I saw said somebody was worried about the dark rings under my eyes. They're actually hereditary. Everyone in my family, all my life, ever since I was a kid, dark rings under the eyes. I don't think it's anything nutritionally related or sleep deprivated. It's just, we are just ugly. Just kidding. I'm going to touch it up a little bit, but just figured I'd acknowledge that comment. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hey, Haps, how you doing? I'm doing all right. You doing all right? I'm doing all right. Let's see. Been a while, so here's my question. What's the story behind Njunkremp's Hope? That is the ship out in the peaks. I'm sure it's mentioned in the Tales of Storm book or in the encyclopedias. I'm curious because long ago during an episode of Mondays or State of the Realm, State of the Realm, you mentioned it'd be cool to have a dungeon or ride the ship to a dungeon like Dunscaith. I always look forward to future content for you. Keep up the good work, sir. Or goose work, as it says if I scroll down. So Njunkremp's Hope was a ship that is a relic from the time of the which Umbral era is it? I think it's the 5th Umbral or whichever one was the Umbral era that resulted in the flood, which I know is immediately following the War of the Magi. I feel like it's the 5th Umbral era. A bunch of people were on that boat, and the boat was used to survive the flood that came from that Umbral era, from that calamity. And it rests on the peak because as the flood, descended, that's just where it ended up. I hope I'm remembering that correctly. I'm almost positive I am. And Njunkremp was the one who made the ship, if I recall correctly. So I still feel like I want it to be more important than maybe it is, but it's a really cool landmark that does have some lore. It is in the Encyclopedia Eorzea. I think it's in Volume 2 in particular, but I don't remember precisely. Pretty sure it's in Volume 2, though. And I think it's also described in a sightseeing log or on a card. I think it's a sightseeing log as well. But the info's in the game and in the Encyclopedia Eorzea. I scrolling through this one, I was like, is this a question? Hello, Happy Mister. Question about 11. Any thoughts on making an HD remaster or remake? No. The mobile game that they were supposed to make, which is HD but is not in any way a remaster. It's an entirely different servers game. That's the closest thing, and who even knows when that'll be done. But no, I have no desire for it either. I go back and I play 11 from time to time. And I can still somewhat enjoy logging into current 11, but I have no desire to really go back to that old era of Final Fantasy 11. You know, I'm willing to try games that, you know, go back in time a little bit, you know, WoW Classic, Pantheon, you know, games that, you know, look at what worked long ago and looks to capitalize on people searching for that experience. And I think it's really important that those things exist, because those kinds of games can usually function on a hardcore player base. Like even 11 to this day still functions and continues to exist and earn revenue off a hardcore player base. You don't need to reach hundreds of thousands or millions of people to be a successful MMO. That being said, I would never spend the time to go back to old 11 for anything other than leveling for YouTube content. Like if they announced it tomorrow, I'd do it, but I do it kind of begrudgingly, admittedly. Yeah, we got a lot of these really simple questions, or thank you for answering questions. Very positive. I think my positive energy before reading the comment section has kind of bled back into the the questions here. Look, hashtag Mr. Happy Monday. Yo, 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 yo. Favorite beast tribe, which and why? You know, if you had asked me before Shadowbringers, it probably would have been either the Kojin or the Namazu. I really like the Stormblood beast tribes. The Ananta, not so much. I wasn't too infatuated with what went on there. The Kojin I love in particular, and the Namazu crack me the hell up. But I really like, and I think this is less being my favorite beast tribe and more so being my favorite beast tribe quests, in that of the Pixies and the Fae. I don't know, it just feels like so much more effort went into the Pixies, and not that much more, but just more than every other beast tribe, you know? The Namazu and the Moogles kind of made me feel the same way, Moogles begrudgingly so, just because of the additional areas, but this whole extra area that's literally just screenshot or AFK fodder, to go to that length to kind of help visualize the importance of the story, I just really appreciate that effort, and I hope we see similar effort for things like the Kitari and whatever the third beast tribe is, because now, whatever the third one is, completely up in the air. I still think it'll be dwarfs, but who even knows? Next one is another short one. My Happy Mondays. Come on now. I know they're right next to each other. They're not even right next to each other on the keyboard. You reached over for that one. I do it too. Hey-o, Mr. Happy. Got a short and sweet question for you. Do you think they'll release a third Ultimate This expansion? I'm torn. I don't think so. I just don't. I want it. I just don't think it's going to happen. And I don't really have a good reason. I just don't think it'll happen. I mean, it didn't happen last expansion. Wanted it to happen last expansion. And I just don't think it'll happen this expansion. But I want it. I really want it. All right, next question. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hello. Hello. I've been watching for quite a while and really like the input and detailed answers you give. And I really like thee, not would like thee. You do like. Would is the line below it. So I was wondering, do you think Dragoon would get a dragon pet for the combat the next expansion? Also, would they be able to turn into a dragon as a burst window kind of thing? I think your second option is no more different than Bahamut, Dreadworm Trance, for example. And considering that is something we've seen, and also things like Living Shadow and the Automaton Queen, I feel like if you are willing to work within the constraints of those kind of systems where they are temporary, large power windows that are, simple to optimize on, maybe. I won't say yes, I'll say maybe. The only thing that gives the dragon pet thing in particular any sort of, I suppose, hope is that there's been, I can't remember exactly what it is. It was either in one of the tales that they put for one of the anniversaries on the website, or it was in one of the Dragoon quests. But it's revealed that Dragoons and Wyverns did used to battle alongside each other. And that could just be a cheeky reference to Final Fantasy XI Dragoons, which is, I'm actually sure why you're asking this question in the first place. But the fact that it's been explained, it exists, makes it a reasonable thing, but it wouldn't be like a summoner pet. And I don't think we'll ever see another job that quite has pets like summoner unless it's a limited job. And even then, it won't be entirely the same. So that's how I feel if it would be incorporated. It'd be like Automaton Queen, or it would be like Dreadworm Trance, depending on which of the two options you're talking about from your question. My word, hashtag supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, that's not even actually what it says, that's actually just my whole intro made into a hashtag. Hi. Hello, how you doing? I'm doing alright. You doing alright? I'm doing alright. I bet you're doing alright. Have a bonus of 1,000 regular not Moogle Tob stones? Tob stones, huh? I'll forgive that. I don't, based on how this question started, I can forgive Tob stones. On the video, I'm commenting there was talk of healers having too simple a DPS rotation. I was thinking, why don't they go down the Astro's Earthly Star route when it comes to more of the healer DPS skills? I'm assuming you mean multifunction, things that best optimized will both heal the party and damage an enemy. I'm assuming that's what you mean here. Obviously, you don't want DPS having to commit to combos and states, but having more DPS skills that are somewhat weaker but have a healing utility. Yeah, you know, it's a perfectly viable thing, having more of those kind of abilities in the game, because a good healer will squeeze every amount of damage out of those and as much healing as possible out of those. You have some very simple to apply ones like a size. You have Earthly Star, which requires a little bit more forethought and knowledge about where people will be standing, where the enemies will be standing, and that's nice. That's a different kind of skill to check for, and I think that's an important thing looking forward to either new jobs or job updates in future expansions, because the actual rotational things that we have to do in the game have gotten simpler. I'd say more streamlined would be the best way to put it. So asking for different jobs to check a different type of skill from the player is kind of how you start to differentiate how jobs feel. And so this is perfectly reasonable. And I don't think it's something that we can ever rule out, having more actions that function like that. But would they make a job entirely around that? I'm apprehensive to say, because obviously I've spoken a lot about in the past about having jobs that are like, you know, the old discipline priests, you know, where you DPS and the DPS you're doing is splashing heals. But then there's there starts to be a blurred line of what your goal actually is as the healer. And that's a big question mark. I don't have an answer for that sort of line that is, you know, drawn in the sand when you start going down that route versus trying to make it so, you know, healers have simple DPS rotations. It's just a very different category to try and fit them in, the one that I just referred to. So but this is possible, and I suspect, you know, we'll at least always have one option on most healers, if, you know, not, you know, I think it's on 2. Scholar doesn't have one that's like that, do they? No, I don't think so, unless I'm misremembering, but 2 of our healers do, and I wouldn't be surprised to see that kind of evolution continue to take place. There's also a bonus question here. Does Aloha like belly rubs? No. He hates belly rubs. Now, sometimes Mel will give him belly rubs, and he will look at us like, please release me, I hate everything. But no, he doesn't like it. Basically, if you try to rub his belly or his chest, he kind of goes into defense mode. And he'll put his paw, he'll push you away, and if you don't listen, he will use teeth. He will nibble, he will bite, and he will get increasingly angry. So I don't ever mess with him on that degree. But he's been really he's had like a hunter's instinct. I've never seen him with so much energy as he has as of late. He always wants to play. He wants to be hunting down his toys. He wants me to grab those, you know, swing them all around, run them up the stairs, run them back downstairs, chase him, jump. I've never seen him with so much energy as he's had as of late. So, you know, if I belly rub him now, he will bite me. He just bites me when he's bored right now to let me know he wants to play. And he just wants to play so much. It's unreal how much work I can't get done because of that. So, no belly rubs. All right, next one. Hashtag Mrhappy Mondays. Hey, Haps, how you doing? I'm doing all right. You doing all right? I'm doing all right. I'll keep it short and simple. Cool, we've had a lot of those this week. Favorite DBZ hero and favorite DBZ villain. Vegeta can be either or both. Your choice. That's actually pretty tough. I'm going to include Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Super. Although I don't know that either of my answers will necessarily be from Dragon Ball. I really do like... Dragon Ball for me has always been kind of the most, I guess, easy to follow story of the Dragon Ball franchise. None of them are very difficult to follow, but there's almost something endearing about the original adventure of Dragon Ball versus Dragon Ball Z and Dragon Ball Super, and we're gonna pretend GT doesn't exist. So it's I don't know. It's really tough. I really do like the second martial arts tournament with Tien in particular. Favorite hero though, you know, I'll say Gohan pre-Buu Saga for favorite DBZ hero. I feel like the actual evolution of character there is pretty well paced out. I mean, he's very accurately a kid that kind of grew into this life and I think it works really well for the story they try to tell for the first early sagas, especially as you go towards the Cell Saga, and then just Boo Saga ruins it, and it gets a little bit better at later points in Super, but it never really comes all the way back. As for the villain, I think it's got to be Cell. You know, there's some of the Super antagonists, but I wouldn't call them villains. Like Hit is an antagonist for the sake of a goal in the you know, Universe 7-6 arc in Super. He's not really a villain, you know, and they kind of toe that line. If I had to pick a favorite villain that is from Z, I'd probably go Cell. If I had to go with Super, I'd probably go with Zamasu. He's a little annoying, but it was an interesting enough arc, and it was more interesting to me than the other villains / antagonists that are in Super. We'll see, though, if Moro gets his time on the screen at any point in the next couple years, and if I have some sort of changed perspective there, because I don't really read the manga, so I only know he exists. I don't really have a grasp on his character yet. There's a few joke hashtags, or people just, here's a hashtag, but I don't have a question. I'm going to make a comment. And I'm like, that's nice. They're actually nice comments. They're not rude or unruly, but I'm just gonna stick to the question itself, I think. Yo, Mr. Happy Monday. Yo, Mr. Happy. First time askers who have seen season passes to all Blitzball tournaments and now till the end of time. Question is about raises and how Blue does it compared to other jobs. The Angel Whisper Blue has a 5-minute cooldown. If this was implemented to all jobs that have a raise going from a regular use spell to the one that has a 5-minute cooldown, how well or horribly would it affect job skills across the board? I know some people it would hurt greatly and others it would force them to improve so they can avoid deaths more. Here's the only reason Blue Mage has a 5-minute cooldown on their raise. It's because all of them can bring it. It's not just there arbitrarily because of the nature of what a single Blue Mage can do. It's there because every Blue Mage can bring it. So if all 8 Blue Mages have a swift cast raise, it's not a resource you need to ever keep track of. You don't need to worry about the person who just used their raise then dying and somebody else having to use it, or somebody with their raise, the only person with their raise left being the dead person. You bypass all of that and it becomes a little bit too easy to cheese things. You already cheese things as Blue Mage, but that's some next level stuff they wanted to avoid. I don't think it makes sense to change it based on the way the game is designed right now, to change it on any of the other jobs. We see an ultimate that raises unless they are at a very, very particular time of the fight. The death itself almost always means the end of the encounter if it's at the wrong time. That's true in some points in Savage as well. Like, there are points where Tsunami, you know, one of the 2 Tsunamis, if it's done wrong, the fight's almost guaranteed over. And even if it isn't, you know, if you have 2 or 3 raises, you still have to go through the resources to get those raises out. You're behind for the whole encounter. Blue Mage doesn't really have that issue when it's going back and doing the old content because they're so powerful across the board. So I don't think it makes sense. However, I do think that when super raising is in meta for Prague, which it fortunately hasn't been so far, we see just the conversation about how raising is way too easy in 14 comes up, and then question marks like this start to raise up. And I think it's reasonable, but I don't think it's going to ever happen, nor does it make sense in other content for Final Fantasy 14. Alright, I see the second hashtag in this one. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hashtag 3 questions, pick one. Interesting. Hey, how's it going? I know that meant to say, hey, how it's going, so I almost said it myself. Enjoy some great coffee lately? Every day. Sorry for the multiple questions. You did say I could just pick one if I wanted to. One, do you think that the 12 could be the ones that started the summoning of Hydaelyn? It's possible that it represents that, but we know that Hydaelyn, specifically, the one great mastermind behind it was the 14th member of the Convocation, or at least it's implied enough so that that's the case. So the 12, I almost feel like it's almost mockery of the Ascian of the original circle, because altogether it falls one short, so there's probably something missing along those lines. But no, I think the 12 are just deities, just like deities that people have come to believe in over the ages. 2, do you think Summoner will be nerfed to 5.2 or a Black Mage will be buffed? No, I think they'll just adjust Red Mage. I think they'll leave the other 2 casters alone. If they touch them, anything super minor. I think Red Mage just needs some buffs, and the other 2 casters are likely to stay relatively in the same place. In lore, Red Magic is the melding of Black and White Magic. I feel like it's more like Black Magic with a cure and a raise. So here's the thing. Red Mage, it's less of a combination of Black and White Magic. It's more of a marriage of how do I say this? Astral and Umbral mana. You know, because it's not black magic and white magic, it's black mana and white mana. And when you're pulling from spells that are of one affinity, Umbral, it generates one type of mana, and when you're pulling from Astral, it generates the other one. So it's less, it's basically a play on the original concept of Red Mage in the Final Fantasy franchise. So I don't think you'll ever see anything like, you're saying, give Red Mage the AoE cure, don't think so. Even if you did, anytime a Red Mage is asked to do that, it would have to be like an OGCD heal. You know, kind of like Curing Waltz on Dancer, for example. But no, yeah, I don't think they'll ever realistically change much of that. The way it's written in the story makes a lot of sense now. It just doesn't exactly match Red Mage and the rest of the franchise. Oof, this one actually has some text to it. Let's see how this goes. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hi, Haps. Hope you are well and taking care of yourself. I'm doing all right. This is like my 6th glass of water in the last hour, so I'm doing all right. How are you feeling about the 7 delay? Has it dampened the hype for you at all? Are you firmly in the more time to polish is always good camp? Personally, I'm more of the latter and hoping that Square will learn more from 15 and just not set a release date until it's certain. I feel like setting a release date and always like hardcore committing to it is probably one of the biggest problems in AAA gaming right now. If something needs more time, own up and say you want more time for it. I was also in the boat that it might be just part of playing business politics in a sense. I mentioned this either last week or the week before, where the fact that it's been moved from one fiscal year to the other pretty much acts as a win-win. Like, it could be that their intent is to move it to the very first quarter of the next fiscal year, which also gives the development team 5 more weeks to, you know, show anything else up. They can say that they're taking the extra 5 weeks to make sure it's the quality that they want it to be. It's essentially win-wins across the board. You give the team more time. You make your first quarter in the next fiscal year. Look at everything looks good. That's just my my tinfoil hat theory of why it was delayed, and not because it actually needs the 5 more weeks. But I'll take it. And I'm not. Here's the thing: the way 7's being done, 5 weeks, I don't care. You know, like the way all the delays and everything have just happened around this time. It doesn't matter to me because I still gotta wait for the other games to come anyway, you know, for part 2, part 3. I gotta live long enough to see those games. It's my motivation. It's one of my big motivations for living, is seeing the end of 7 Remake, if not as my current body, as a head in a jar, watching it on YouTube. One of the two I'll have to settle for. And yeah, I've avoided all the other stuff that you mentioned here. But, you know, I'll be excited. I'll be just as excited when I pick it up. It won't change anything for me. This one was asked 6 days ago. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hey, Happy. Hope you are doing well. I'm doing very well. For the next 2 or 1 jobs, you were watching last week. You didn't just ask the question. What do you think they're going to do for job quests? Since I assume they'll be starting at 70 when the job-specific quests were condensed into generic role quests, will they get 1 new job quest at 70, 1 at 80, and then 1 at 90, or will they actually give them more job quests? I think they'll give them 70 to 80 proper job quests. I do. I think every job that they release, they will do 10 levels of what we consider at this point the old formula for job quests. So I think they'll get one at 70, 72, 74, etc., 70, 73, 75, 78, 80, and not just go straight from 1 at 70 to 1 at 80. That's what I want to tell myself in my head. But I do think then every job will just have the almost formality at the next level cap. So in this case, for your question, level 90. I don't think they'll do 80 to 90 with similar job quests. I think they'll stick to the way they did that now. And then I think we'll get more role quests in the next expansion as well. So hopefully that answers the question in its entirety. We got another one with a decent amount of text. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hashtag another one. Hi, Haps. Hi. It's a question along the lines of a few others you've answered in the past. So if you don't think you have anything new or more specific to say about it, no hard feelings. I've been toying with the idea of making podcast-style content on the subject of game balance, focusing on a game series per episode, but I don't know how I would go about marketing it. Do you have any tips or insight how to grow an audience as a nobody? When it comes to streaming, your advice has always been just do it regardless, but for episodic content, I feel like there might be a reason for a more focused approach. Do you have any previous online community involvement? And it seems like something that would be very hard to break into. You know, it kind of still does fall into that line. If you have an idea, you really just need to do it. Marketing an idea that's as simple as a podcast. There's a few basic avenues you can take, but you also don't want to just throw your content in people's faces without them asking, without seeing a proof of concept. Generally, the best way that content is introduced is organically. So somebody else says, oh, this person's making podcasts and I haven't seen any posts about it, because they're somebody that you've attracted, somebody you've watched, somebody who appreciates the amount of detail that you've gone into with that specific topic that you're looking at. And I feel like if you haven't made the product yet, like you haven't done the podcast, you haven't, started working on it, if the work hasn't been done to produce the product yet, you shouldn't necessarily be worrying about marketing it, because you don't precisely know what points you need to market yet. Anyway, you don't know if you simply want to market the information, if you're trying to be a personality on a podcast like this, if it's just for information purposes. There's that needs to be nailed down, and it needs to be produced before you worry about marketing it. And the thing that sucks is it is harder than ever nowadays to market something in the traditional manner of spreading it through word of mouth, through being, a pillar of it in a community. It has to build itself. You have to put it out there. You have to do it consistently, and you have to keep it, keep the information relevant. So it's very tough to do. So my advice is still just do it regardless, and produce more than one. Don't just produce one and then say, how do I market it? Produce it over and over. Prove to yourself you can do it. Prove to yourself that you have the motivation. Prove to yourself that you have the source material. Prove to yourself that you can produce it more than a single time before you focus on, people seeing it. Because if it's good, people will see it regardless. And if you do it once and never do it again, all that's going to do is lead to either personal disappointment or disappointment from people who you've, provided it to, and now they don't get to see it anymore. So doing it consistently is the first step. Get to that first. Oh boy, there's a lot of text. I might have to go looking for a question in this one. Hashtag Mr. Happy Moon Days. Get it? Because 5.2 may have the Dalamood or Dalamood. I'm gonna maybe think of skipping this question. Strange question. I know you don't care for collabs with other games, neither do I, unless it gives meaningful content that changes things around like Rathalos, but I've been replaying one of my favorite games, Star Ocean 3, till the end of time. Because of that, I've been thinking it'd be interesting to have a Star Ocean collab. I see you had one bigger question and one smaller question, and now it's just kind of been wrapped up into one. Let's see. Any random thoughts? Okay, so last week I talked about having, these are the kind of questions I don't really have thoughts on, and it's not because I'm not a super big Star Ocean fan. I actually recently bought First Departure R, since they took the, I think it's PSP game and then put it on the PS4, and I played Star Ocean 5, and I've dabbled in Star Oceans 3 and 4, but not through the entire games. So I'm not a super fan, so a lot of this is just lost on me. But here's the thing about collabs. You've given me a lot of information that is way beyond the scope of something as simple as a collab. Because collabs are non-canon. I don't know, a lot of people don't know that, but every collaboration that's ever happened in Final Fantasy XIV is considered non-canon to the world of Final Fantasy XIV. So nobody will ever mention seeing Shantoto unless it's in another quest that is directly involved with the same NPCs. Lightning never happened. I know it's mentioned in like the 15 quest if you did the Lightning quest. It never happened in the canonical world. That's how they justify having them. So this is like a big idea for something that's non-canonical, and a lot of I suppose how do I put it? Non-canonical, and I want to say it's not, I want to use the word low effort, because collabs are usually not, other than like Rathalos in my opinion, they're not super high effort. They're just marketing tools, but that's not the word I'm looking for. But yeah, I don't really have a whole lot to share on this because I don't know a lot about Star Ocean. I only know enough. And also, it's just the thoughts. I brought it up at the end of last week. It's one of those questions where I'm going to just present you with all of my ideas. What do you think? And I don't value my opinion in such a way that I can necessarily provide an answer. Because what I don't think matters in this case. Because you've already said I don't like collabs. I'm not particularly attached to Star Ocean. And I know what to expect from collabs in Final Fantasy XIV. So ideas are fun, but I don't have anything to add to anything like this. And then so the follow-up question, what if Dungeon's got a trophy system? Like, now, see, this already reads like a question that I can actually deal with more. What if Dungeon's got a trophy system like Star Ocean 3, where there's a bunch of minor tasks that can, you know, be difficult or simple, that offer rewards based on how many you have? I brought ideas like that up because of the Blue Mage Carnival, which has micro objectives that you get bonus points for. The problem is properly rewarding it, because we do not have a great system for reward structure for dynamic challenge systems like this. And I brought that up last week when we talked about the 4-man dungeons and the idea of providing a proper reward structure even for more challenging 4-man content. So I'm always down for things like this, but I don't know how they actually fit it into the reward structure of Final Fantasy XIV outside of, you know, minions, titles, glam, or just the promise of content, which for a lot of people is not enough. I think without like an alternate leveling system like Eureka had, it's very hard to justify the ends in a system like this. But I'm always down for it because I like really cool ideas. I like the Blue Mage, and that was literally just a title, and I loved it, and a mount, and that was enough for me to do that. So if you just throw those things and it's challenging, I'll probably find a way to get it done. I actually don't know how much time has been on the video, because I actually cut the first half of the recording because I had to go do something real quick, and then I started the recording again. So I only know that this current recording is like 25 minutes in. So I don't know how many more questions I'll do. But hello, Mr. Happy. Sorry for the disregard for the correct etiquette and dressing. I don't even remember last week, man. Last week's a blur. Although I just referenced a bunch of stuff from last week. Never mind. So anyway, my question is, kind of want to get your thoughts on the upcoming relics and sky tool items. Basically, kind of what your hopes are for how they'll be implemented. I always feel like the weather system outside of fishing is underutilized. So having something where you kill this many mobs in the weather condition, that stuff ain't never going to happen in Final Fantasy XIV. Outside of places like exploration content, where weather can determine what kind of enemies actually do, you'll never see anything even remotely close to this. It's too tedious, is just really the bottom line. And replicating anything from Final Fantasy XI, there's a couple ideas. You can't throw them out entirely. I mean, we're getting the boat between Silvina and Muhara technically as ocean fishing, but you generally can't look to Final Fantasy XI to apply ideas to Final Fantasy XIV, just because they operate on two very, very different wavelengths. So I'm going to go ahead and say no to that idea in particular. As to what my hopes are, that it's just exactly what they said it is. I don't really care about the Sky Tool items, I'll be clear, because I don't do crafting or gathering, like, at all. Maybe I'll do one for the memes. I'm only going to do ocean fishing for the memes, so I can compare a boat ride between Silvina and Muhara to a boat ride between Limsa Lominsa and the Waking Sands, which is basically how that's going to work. And then I could finally get my fishing to 80, probably, even though it's really not that hard to do now. And then for the relics, they said it would be a mix of, you know, you could choose to do exploration content, you could choose to do other content, you know, it wasn't explicitly tied to one piece of content anymore, and that's all I wanted out of the relic. Wanted it to be, I can do exploration content for it if I really want to, but I could also not do that, you know, go do expert daily, or go do this, or collect tomes from this, or, you know, maybe go do hunts for that, you know, just build on it from doing other activities that aren't just one singular thing. And that's all my hopes are for the relic, to make it more like that. Next one, hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hey, Haps, you doing item, doing I, you doing item, doing I, you doing item, doing I, you doing item, doing I. SpongeBob, 13 minutes later. I appreciate the effort and the reference. Anyways, I know you're not a huge glam fan. You're right about that. But let's see the question. But how would you feel about new Eggy Glamours based on current or potential future Eden Primals? I'll read the last sentence before I give you my answer, because I already know what it is. Personally, I love a little tight Eggy race car following me around. You're a brave person to be asking about anything primal, or Eggy Glamour related, to be about Eden Primals anyway. When we've gotten 3 carbuncles in 6 years, and that's it. You're brave to want to look that far into the future, because I want to see it exist. I want to see the system, like, really exist in the first place. So you know what? I'm going to wait for the system to formally be introduced, to be more than just, like, moving around the carbuncles, you know, changing the appearance of your Ifrit Eggy to a carbuncle. And then maybe we could have this conversation again then. Maybe after it exists enough, at least, to have the conversation. Alright, I scrolled down real quick, and I think there's only 1 or 2 more comments under this. So this might be the last one. We'll see. Hey, Mr. Appy. Hey, Mr. I couldn't come up with a clever response to you for getting my H on purpose, because the A is capital. Don't worry about it. I would really like to see new jobs locked behind having other jobs in the role level to 80. Yikes. Example, new tank job requiring level 80, Paladin, Warrior, Dark Knight, and Gunbreaker. I'm assuming you meant or. No, you said and, though. Do you think this could be viable? No. I'm just going to give you a straight up answer. No. It will, A, never happen. And you know, when I say something will never happen, it usually comes back to bite me. Because it can always happen. I don't make the rules. Let's just be clear about that. They can decide that tomorrow. I'm going to say never here, because they've been very clear about the way that they want job unlocks to go in expansions. They want them to be 20 levels behind the expansion that's current max level, so 10 levels to catch up to the previous expansion, then the 10 levels every other job has to do. They want them to be accessible from starter areas, or not even from starter areas, but from a Realm Reborn accessible areas, which makes less and less sense the further we get into the expansion, because you have to go to Ishgard, you have to do this. They just want to make it so that you can make that decision as quickly as possible without story progress as soon as you hit the level that's required, especially if you're on a server that has like the bonus EXP, the road to 70, I think it is at this point. They are never going to make you level a bunch of jobs to 80 and then go, now you've earned this job. So no, I'm just going to say that's never going to happen. And you know what? This question actually has a reply under it. I have a feeling it says something similar before looking at it. And I was correct. That was the last question. There were a few other hashtags among everything. One with some questions that I didn't have an answer to, and some just with the general comments that I said before. So that's going to be a wrap for this episode of Mondays with Mr. Happy. Thank you to everyone who did ask questions and the ones I got to answer. If I didn't answer, or if you did the hashtag with things that just had comments, I'm letting you know I saw them, and thank you. But anyway, on that note, one last shout out to our patrons. Their names aren't scrolling on the list anymore, but shout out to them. Shout out to everyone tuning in and asking the questions. And shout out to our patrons of Darkness, Khuja, Jenova, and Kurenai Oni. And be sure to ask your questions in the comment section for next week. Just so you know, actually, I guess that's not really relevant to you guys because it won't delay Mondays with Mr. Happy. Next week, I'm going to be pretty... Not this like coming week, but the week after next week, I'm going to be pretty busy. I've got a few things on my docket. So you may not see as much. You may not even see like 4 or 5 videos a week, which is what I've been kind of doing now, including Mondays and State of the Realm. So just giving you the heads up now. This next week, I'm going to upload a few Twitch highlights that I've been saving. And I've got a couple of just general announcement videos to make, the live letter got a release date. I never put that out. There's been a few comments about some other things that I feel like are probably video worthy. So be on the lookout for that. Anyway, I will see all of you in the next episode of Mondays with Mr. Happy. And until then, take care.